Are superheroes fascist? Well, no, not inherently, but they are walking a very, very fine line that some of them do occasionally cross. So I've been reading a lot of articles lately about the existence of fascism in superhero media, from comic books to our favourite blockbuster movie franchises, and while many of these articles are well written think pieces, many seem to invariably miss the point. Superheroes at a glance embody many of the characteristics associated with fascist ideology, in that they tend to be stronger, smarter, at times richer, and generally better than the rest of us, and as such, they seem to believe that this not only gives them the right to operate with little to no oversight or respect for accountability, but in some cases that it is their responsibility to do so. This vigilantism, egoism and borderline terrorism is beyond a shadow of a doubt criminal activity, but it falls short of fascism, as superheroes generally have no intention of consolidating their power and using said power to establish a rigid and unassailable status quo. Now, I use the term generally as they have been known to do exactly that, but as long as this is addressed in the narrative, then that is absolutely fine, as it becomes a theme explored at the express intent of the author. It only becomes problematic in its glorification if the superhero enterprise established within the fiction is an unmitigated success, which it rarely is. Basically, no matter what, the ends should never justify the means. Another thing is that these superhero stories each need to be judged on a case-by-case basis. Making huge, sweeping blanket statements that seek to retroactively apply a political universality to narrative context is pointless, as superheroes tend to have little to no consistency between stories. One man's Superman may indeed come across as the embodiment of fascist ideology, while another's may depict him as the paragon of truth, justice and most importantly, due process. A show that explores this argument to perfection is the animated series Justice League Unlimited. Take a look at this clip from the fantastic episode Question Authority.
The way you and the League have been acting lately. Look, I'm a reporter, not a public relations person, but with all the muscle you guys throw around, you're starting to scare me.
I'll admit, we got a lot of power, but we only use it to help.
Like when you and Captain Marvel wrecked Lexor City on national television? Or maybe you mean when you fired that big space gun in the desert?
We come on a little strong sometimes, but it's for the people's own good.
That sounds like something Lex would say.
Don't even joke about that. I'm nothing like Lex Luthor.
Of course you're not. I'm just saying you can't serve the public without their confidence. It's a question of trust.
Now, this scene gives insight into Superman's delusion. He and the Justice League have clearly set up a power paradigm that cannot be challenged due to the incredible amount of strength they possess, and the worrisome part is he uses the phrase,
"But it's for the people's own good."
This right here is fascism. Nobody gave Superman the right to decide what was for the people's own good. He is stronger, and so he took that right for himself. Hell, there's even a scene in the very same episode in which the Question, best character ever by the way, confronts Superman on the very issue.
I'd never do anything like that.
Wouldn't you? Didn't you recently try to lobotomize Doomsday with your heat vision, just as the Justice Lord did?
That's different.
It's the same. A heavily armed watchtower with an army of proactive heroes, Luthor running for president. If it's not quite the same, it soon will be. Have you seen Amanda Waller's computer simulations?
Batman told me about them.
Did he tell you all the models predict that a war between the Justice League and the government will devastate the planet?
We would never fight the government.
Not even if Luthor was the government?
After this, the Question is captured by Lex Luthor, and so Huntress enlists Superman's help in finding him. But listen to just how quick Superman is to circumvent the very laws he professes to operate within.
The Justice League plays by the rules. We'll move when we have solid evidence, not before. And we'll move within the limits of the law.
That's why I quit.
The way I remember it, you were fired. But you may have a point this time.
So
you and I will do this together. And we're doing it off the books.
Dangerous ground, am I right? But then just look at this conversation the Justice League members have regarding their situation.
I'm the only guy in the room who doesn't have superpowers, and let me tell you, you guys scare me. What if you do decide to go marching down there, taking care of whoever you think is guilty? Who could stop you? Me?
So you want the government to have a bunch of superhuman weapons just to keep us in check?
No. I don't know. Yeah. Look, I'm an old lefty. The government must do for people what people can't do for themselves. The people sure can't protect themselves from the likes of us.
This kind of self-aware storytelling showcases that the fascist superhero argument is something that most of the men and women who pen these stories are very conscious of. Most. The problem is much of what defines a superhero is at the discretion of the author, and if handled poorly can result in a very problematic political precedent being set. An example of this done right and an example of this done wrong are in two recent movies that actually attempted to tackle the issue head on: Captain America Civil War and Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. You see, in Captain America Civil War, Captain America himself is the one who acts like a fascist. He takes it upon himself to go into a foreign country and act as sheriff due to the fact that he and his team are stronger and more capable than traditional law enforcement, and believe it is their responsibility to do so regardless of oversight. Now, it would be a problem if the mission went off without a hitch, as it would only serve to propagate the idea that the strong should protect the weak by whatever means necessary, but the mission doesn't go according to plan. In fact, the negligence of this group of foreign rogue combatants results in the tragic deaths of over a dozen innocent civilians. As a result, the United Nations ask the Avengers to sign an accord that will place them under government oversight, and there's a fantastic conversation that the Avengers have about what they each think about the idea. I think it's War Machine who puts it best when he calls Captain America's reasons for rejecting the idea dangerously arrogant. This is brilliant because it's exactly the issue we're talking about. Although Cap is a good guy, he is categorically wrong in his argument. Now, after this, the filmmakers do something very clever and shift the focus of Captain America's character to a smaller, more intimate relationship between him and his friend Bucky Barnes, rather than have him explicitly fight for a cause the filmmakers themselves know to be problematic. This way, we're still able to identify with and root for Cap because all he wants to do is save his friend. But in truth, it's Iron Man who is the hero of this film. Toward the end of the movie, it's true Iron Man attempts to kill the Winter Soldier, but this can be attributed to a crime of passion given the context rather than a premeditated abuse of his power. And then there's Batman v Superman. This movie just doesn't quite understand what it wants to say on the subject, and because of this, it can be used as an example for both sides of the argument, which isn't a good thing. Firstly, let's get Batman out of the way here because this is pretty simple. Batman may have been the quote-unquote coolest thing in this movie, but in regards to this argument, he's not very interesting. Zack Snyder's Batman is fascist as fuck. I don't even think I have to explain why, do I? The indiscriminate killing, the stealing of sensitive information, the general warpath he seems to be on, Snyder doesn't give his Batman the nuance we're used to, and as a result, we get the Punisher on steroids. This Batman believes the ends justify the means, no matter what, open and shut case. Then you have Superman, who is at least conflicted about what it is he's doing. He does act as though might is right, but he struggles with this decision every time he makes it. He wants to help people but almost feels guilty about doing so. I actually like this element of the character because it shows that he is in fact as human as anybody else. He doesn't have all the answers and he doesn't pretend to, and as a result, he's actually pretty inept. That's not bad. Again, it's human. He's willing to answer for his crimes in court and do what he can to appease the people. The character isn't the problem. The problem is Zack Snyder. He presents Superman, a man conflicted with the idea of what he's doing and willing to subject himself to government oversight, as inept and often outwitted by his enemies, and then presents Batman, the actual fascist in this movie, as superior in almost every way. I mean, he beats Superman for Christ's sake. Batman acting like a fascist isn't the problem. It's a story and characters need to fulfill roles. Batman triumphing as a fascist, now that's troubling. Then you have Lex Luthor, who at first seems to be on the right side of the argument, but his motivations fluctuate so often and with such arbitrariness that it's almost impossible to figure out what it is that actually drives him. I won't even get into the clusterfuck of the final battle, where all pretense of this movie being anything but an ode to power fantasy is quickly forgotten. The whole thing, unfortunately, is just tone deaf, whereas in better hands it actually could have been something quite special. And this brings us back to my opening statement. No superheroes are not inherently fascist. They are subject to the whims and wills of writers and their political understanding or lack thereof. Most, however, still understand that at their core, superheroes are the avatars of a morality play that in one form or another has existed since the dawn of storytelling. We use them to demonstrate right from wrong, good from evil, and though nothing in life may ever be that simple, there's no harm in an example to help light the way. Thank you everybody for watching. Please feel free to like and subscribe, as it really does help me out, and you can also check out the channel for more content, all things superheroes, Game of Thrones, Star Wars, everything. We've got it here. See you later. Bye.